report. Nothing bad, nothing bad. I just had a unexpected visitor, but we are going to move forward with our live. And today we are going to be talking about publishing with a major. Now, this is different than some of the publishing and writing content that I do because I've always talked about why I wrote these books, the different types of um, topics I talk about, things of that nature. But I think some of you are more interested in how you can get published by a major publishing company. So, as you can see, these are the books right here. And to show verify credentials, go ahead and open this. As you can see, that's their logo. You know anything about Urban Books, Urban Christian, is the copyright page. I can show this as the author of this book. And there's the back logo, publisher page. I'm going to address why I have different names in a minute. Um, but yeah, I want to say that there's no difference between writing for a major and writing for a publisher. I will say that if you are submitting the book to an editor, it is definitely, I mean, not an editor, but well, yeah, acquisitions editor or an agent, editing needs to be top notch. I will say that. There is I will admit, there is a stark difference between what and the quality to a point, what the majors produced and what some people are able to produce independently. Like I said, some people. Um, I've been self-publishing for 20, this will be my 20th year next month. So long time, almost 30, longer than a lot of people been born. But publishing with the major is there are advantages and disadvantages. And one of the biggest advantage is walking into a major retail chain and seeing the book on shelves, on a display, um, and know that's your work. Know that you spent a lot of time, energy, and effort. It still brings a smile to my face because as much as I enjoy my self-publishing journey and being able to help people be successful, being independent, it's nice when there's somebody else that believes in your dream. Whether you only are able to have one book published by a major or you have dozens of books or you're a hybrid, because now that seems to be the thing. You have some authors that self-publish one set of books and they deal have a publishing deal for another set of books. Some people have two different types or two different publishing deals. So those possibilities are out there. Yes, the writing has to be tighter. A lot of times you have to be putting writing a book that is serves their niche. So with this book, which I'll start with, Try a Little Tenderness, I wrote this book. Um, it's funny how I got this deal. Self publishing is how I got my deal with Urban Christian. At the time, we got the deal. Well, actually, it was my deal. And then, long story short, somebody else's name was on here besides mine. Um, I was successful as a self published author first. People who know my publishing journey know that I initially had a whole nother name, that I built a successful career as a young adult author. And then I had another name that I did um, alternative romance, male, female romance. Um, and then I have another name that I write some other salacious tales under. And then there's this one. And the funny thing about being Isaiah David Paul is that it was it was not a secret. Now, I initially wrote faith fiction as Isaiah David Paul. Now, Isaiah David Paul does more contemporary stuff. I still have other faith titles that I will eventually get back to. I do nonfiction under this name as well. But I was a successful independent faith fiction author first. So if you came to the live I did last week where I talked about Broken But I'm Healed, ironically, it was my worst reviewed book that is also one of my top selling Isaiah David Paul books that got me noticed, got me the deal. I knew the acquisitions editor. I met her when I was 16. She was one of the first people. Shout out to Joylyn and Ross. She was one of the first people I met in the publishing journey. And when I met her, she was doing try to get this right. She was doing short stories and poetry. And she was doing well, showing everybody how she could get out there and promote and sell her books. And then I eventually would reconnect with her again under the notorious label Triple Crown Publications. She was assigned author at the label, and I was managing one of the authors they had that was incarcerated. So, for those of you who are wondering, I don't, I do talk about it, but my ties to Triple Crown Publications, that's where my ties came from. I was not assigned author under my own name. I ghost wrote books that they produced. Um, but I'm more known for being managing an author that was incarcerated at the time. I also later would go on to, after I was successfully self published my young adult fiction authors, I would actually sign and publish quite a few books that some of the other Triple Crown authors produced. So I had built a relationship and a reputation. Not only was I publishing books and being successful, I was writing articles and was a columnist for the Urban Booksource. And I had been blogging. So I had my own young adult blog, and a lot of, ironically enough, when you think about Triple Crown and street lit authors, we write hood, urban crime, crime fiction novels. That's what they were known for back at the time. But then, ironically, we are the ones, and when I say we, I'm specifically talking about me, Deja King, Tashonda Winokur, um, Joylyn and Ross, Kashamba Williams. We led the charge to promote and produce young adult fiction that was age appropriate for kids. So she's been watching my journey, and Urban Books to a fact too. They've been watching my journey for years. When Urban Books first launched, their first authors, Roy Glenn, LaJill Hunt, and LL Cool Jill, love you, and Dwayne S. Joseph. I used to advise and manage a store called the Living Room Book and Pastry in Greensboro, and so I initially met my urban book contacts that way. But as I continued managing an author that was incarcerated, they always had their eye on me. I could always ask a question, I could always get an answer. And so as I was after, I had my little fall, I got back up and had another little fall, got back up as Isaiah David Paul, and I hit a nice running streak. And I was presented the opportunity to not only sign as an author under Urban Christian, I was going to initially be in an anthology that they were going to produce. And initially, the story I produced was accepted, but unfortunately, the story did not come out under that brand, that title. But I had built a good relationship, and I was able to continue working with Miss Ross. And I initially submitted this book, and what they chose to do, because I actually got my deal before Urban Christian was forced to shut down. So I also have the distinction of being one of the last authors to have the Urban Christian imprint, Urban Christian logo published on my book. So I take pride in that. I mean, I love the experience. Um, when I submitted the book, when they accepted it, and we went through the process, I got to work with a team of editors. I had personal editor I worked with. Ross edited and worked on the book, and then shout out to the in-house editor. She did a good job on the book as well. And what you see is the same book that came out when my book came out in 2015. This book came out when Victoria Christopher Murray released her infamous award winning novel, Stand Your Ground. So I was very proud to share a release date with her and Wahida Clark. Wahida Clark and, oh my God, I forgot the man's name already. David Weaver had a book together, I think. And then it's now published solely as a Wahida Clark title. So those were some of the major releases that were out when this book came out. So I have great fond memories of this book. I'll be honest with you, my one of my biggest publishing regrets was not giving them the second book in my contract. I can't really get into that legally as to how that did not happen, but man, love this. Now, speaking of that and admitting to that, let's get to this book. This book was not in the same situation as the Urban Christian book. What ended up happening was somehow, some way, um, my ex-wife, since it's public knowledge, was able to get a solo deal. She didn't produce the book. It's known that I wrote 70% of this book and another author wrote 30. I have always admitted since the book has came out that I wrote 70%, another author wrote 30. How do I define 70%? I probably wrote a little more than half of the book. I named all the characters. I came up with all the setting, the situations. I changed what another writer wrote for the settings and situations in the story that was contributed to this novel to my own creation. This book has a direct tie to not only my Saints and Aints series, it also has a direct tie to my Misunderstanding of Don Ho series that I wrote under the name Cedric Quincy. Um, like I said, this book was a different experience. At the time, my ex wife had a solo one book deal, and this is the book they chose to publish under this deal. I eventually went along with the plan, and I always marketed and promoted the book because, even though it wasn't the circumstances I would have wanted to have the book published under, I'm still appreciative of the fact that the book got published. There are a lot of things I wish would have been done differently with the book. Now, before y'all try to go and call Carl Weber, he knows how I feel. I've told him how I feel. I have told Urban and Kingston my thoughts and opinions. So it's not like I'm saying anything or being some shady person on the internet. My feelings are known, and most importantly, my feelings are valid, especially since I initially did not give permission for this book to be published with my ex-wife's name on it. However, common quote, we continue to move forward. I still love the story. I hate that the story didn't get published the way I would have wanted, but I still love the stories. I created LaShawn with intention. Her being a teenage mother and overcoming everything to be a powerful madam and real estate investor was done with intention. There are bits and pieces of my life or things that I have access to that were put in this book. There are certain experiences that I would not have been able to that would not have appeared in this book. Let me rephrase that. There are certain experiences that would not have appeared in this book if I hadn't been through those experiences. So the situation was very different on one hand, and I hate that I don't have my copy of it now, knowing I was going to do this video. This book I got to see, unlike Try a Little Tenderness, which was only published in trade paperback and ebook, This book got an audio, there's an audio version. This book had another printing as a mass market. Mass market books are the size of this one. And yeah, I have a connection to this book too, but we're gonna behave today. But yeah, so it was nice seeing that. So I got to experience, or what it how did they say in the new edition story, you get to bite the apple twice. You get to bite the apple once when you see this version of the book in the store. Then when you come back like a year later and you see it in the store again, and it's a small little book, and you wonder how, when you know how many words that you put into the book, how did the book get to be, yeah, definition of bad girls about this thing. So it's like, how did it, you wonder how it looks. And you do get excited. I don't care what nobody says, man. When you have achieved being able to say your book was nationally distributed, you've sold thousands of copies with your publisher, you've been able to go on tour and go to different bookstores. Some of the so I'm trying to remember. I couldn't, of course, when I was in Walmart, I could not sign. Oops, sorry, wasn't supposed to that. When I was supposed to, at some major retailers, naturally you can't go in there and sign the books. But there were some that did allow for me and my ex-wife to sign the books and have autographed copies. Um, I will say some of your major well-known book retailers have been more accessible when the books were published by, which I get, because your books published by a major, it's easier for them to get. It goes through their preferred channels. They get their preferred deals or whatever the case may be. Um, and they make it happen. And so it is a good thing when you get to see it. A lot of times, being an author that has this like a major publishing deal, especially if it's your first one, when it's your first deal, I don't care what nobody say, kid in the candy store, except the candy is the candy you made. So it's like, oh my God, I hope everybody likes the candy. You know what I'm saying? So, and I still smile about it because even though, like I said, not everything went the way I would have wanted. Not every situation came out the way I would have preferred. There are definitely some things, and I don't regret working with Urban. I would work with them again. I would work with them again if it was just me, meaning just my name on the book and not somebody else's name, or helping somebody as a ghostwriter. I don't want to do that no more, with some of the authors that were on that label. I would only want to do another deal with Carl Weber if it was just an Isaiah David Paul title or Cedric Quincy title, if we could get the right one. Um, and it is something that people work for. For some people, that's the ultimate goal, and there's nothing wrong with that being a goal. But I'm gonna go also tell you as get ready to end this live, just because you have a deal with the major publisher doesn't mean you don't have to get out there and sell. I still had to pay for marketing materials. I still had to buy ads. I paid for the hotel rooms when I traveled up and down the Southeast, promoting the books. When I eventually went out to Denver to promote the book with my family and friends, shout out to all of my family members and friends and high school classmates and all you wonderful people that bought my book because I finally got into a major store. I really love and appreciate y'all because it is a good experience. And if you know someone that's had that experience and been able to enjoy this, celebrate it with them. They earned it. They earned it. They earned it. But like I said, and as I get ready to close out this live, just because you get a deal doesn't mean the deals keep coming. If your books don't sell or they don't do the numbers they supposed to, or you're into some other shenanigans behind the scenes, you can lose those deals as fast as you can get them. And even let's just say things don't work out and you're not able to keep a deal, you still have to move. I think one of the smartest decisions I ever made that helped sell these books, even to this day. I still talk about this book, regardless of how I feel about certain situations that took place. I really talk a lot about this book. And I know as authors, we're not supposed to have favorites. I don't have a favorite between this book and this book. This was my favorite situation to be in versus the other book. But you still have to get out there. And I sell more books independently now. And I was wise and smart to put a lot of my um, previously published books out as Isaiah David Paul. And it's an easy name to remember, easy name to get social medias under. And like I said, it has been a great experience overall. Um, and yeah, if you get an opportunity, I'll end with this for like the third time. I said I'll end this live. I'll end this live only because I see another question on one of those streams. So I'm answering this person's question. Um, I did not have an agent when I did this book. Yes, in order to get deals with most majors, you do need an agent. It is strongly preferred. I would recommend majority of you get an agent, but you also have to remember when I published this book, you figure I came out in 1998. This book came out in 2015. I got my deal in 2014. I was already 15, 16 years in. So there were some things and relationships I was able to have and develop that your traditional average author that starts out does not always have. But yeah, if you don't have those advantages or don't have those connections, by all means, please get an agent. You still need to research. You still need to be able to be prepared to move as if you were self published. Because if you do not sell these books and you do not pay back the advance that you get from these books, you won't get no royalties. I think I'm going to have to make that a whole separate video. It's been real. I thank y'all for coming on my live and thank you for supporting me. I'm always and forever humble. Thank you for joining, giving me likes, hearts, share, subscribe, follow, whatever it is you do on the platforms you are on. And we'll talk more about paying, doing royalties. I will come back and do another live so I can talk more about royalties and publishing and that part of the game. Y'all stay blessed out here. This has been great, y'all. I appreciate y'all. Peace.